This talk is about the Empath's Guide to Meaning and Purpose, which is about really life purpose and meaning. For most of the people, I've been teaching around A.R.E for about 25 years, and most of the people I've worked with, I would say the majority are sensitive people, or people who are empathic, or people who feel things deeper, sense things deeper. And when I teach intuition, when I do intuition training, I've always said that there are three components to intuition. One is the imagination. It's like an awakened imagination. It's the language of the soul. But you need to have sensitivity and empathy. Those are really two really strong factors. If you have sensitivity, you can hear the subtle intuition or the feelings or the vibes coming through. And if you have empathy, you actually care about what you're saying to somebody else, or what you're doing for somebody else, or how you're working with somebody else. So sensitivity and empathy are really strong components to intuition. There are people who are naturally intuitive, and they are not sensitive or empathic. But in this particular community, most people I found over 25, 30 years, most of the people in this community are either sensitive or empathic or both. How many people don't have sheets? A few. Oh, God, a whole section. It's like a... Okay, there's quite a few. They're coming. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to buy a little time. And I'm going to start with how many people feel, and the reason I'm saying this is part of the conversation as we move into the 21st century. This is a component, these are components and the qualities that we want to develop in our young people. We would love to develop in our political leadership. We would love to develop it in places where people are working, where they have to interact with each other, or anybody who works with people. A lot of those people are, if they're teachers, if they're healers, if they're nurses, if they're doctors, many of them will be sensitives. Many. Some will not be. And what I've noticed is that there are also doctors out there, because I've met a few, and some are genuine healers. They're actually very sensitive, they're compassionate, they're really wonderful. And then there's other ones who are just there, and they're maybe more, not as much sensitive to feelings. They may be really good at book knowledge, they may be very good at some of the other things that they're doing, but their sensitivity isn't one of their traits. But as we get further into the 21st century, you're going to find this is going to be, there's a higher quality to this trait, and it's a trait that people, if you don't have it, you want to develop it some, because this is a 21st century trait that's coming back into focus. It did, all the other people who were sensitive and empathic over the last, I'd say, I don't know how many years, maybe a few thousand years, the last 2,000 years anyway, a lot of them were in convents or monasteries or spiritual places where they could find some spiritual knowledge or information, or spiritual groups of some kind. Now, all of the sensitives and empaths have been dropped on the earth, and they have to just find a way of surviving. There is no more temples. There's no place for you to hang out. You're on your own. You can come to A.R.E. You can go to some other places, but basically this is the place. This is the only place I know you can really hang out. So this is what we're going to talk about today. All right. I just want to give everybody a chance to come on in. I know it's they're still trying to print up the information because they're trying to make sure everybody gets the handouts. And the handouts, you don't really have to take notes. I wrote out 3 handouts just because it's just easier for you to work with without having to fool around and take notes on anything. If you want to take notes, there's one page that's got an empty back. So that will be, I think, sufficient for what you want to work with. All right. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, but you said there was 3 parts to intuition.
3 components to intuition when I teach it. No, that's when I teach it. I'm not teaching intuition tonight. So the first component's imagination. It's awakened imagination. It's not just your daydreaming this thing. It's actual awakened imagination. It's the language of the soul. You really don't need to write this down because we're not doing a psychic program tonight. What we're doing, it's awakened imagination, so it's a language of the soul. So somehow your soul has to communicate to your personality. And your soul needs to be able to understand and get your personality to get what it's trying to tell you. So some of you, for example, let's start this. And we'll get everybody seated here. But the first thing you want to do is start with intuition in the imagination. Some of you are going to be feelers. You're going to feel all kinds of feelings, like in the gut, in the, just in the heart. You're going to, if you're walking by somebody who's depressed, you're going to feel like, oh, I'm kind of bummed out. I'm kind of depressed. And I was fine when I walked into this store, and now I'm really depressed. It's probably not your feelings. So there's feelers, those are clairsentients. There's clairaudience, people who hear. I'm a clairaudient. So people who hear, and it's not like voices telling you to go, do anything bad. It's basically your own inner voice, but it's just a heightened voice. It's a more intelligent voice. It's an intuitive intelligence. So it's a higher voice. It's not your personality's voice. Your personality's voice says, gee, I'm hot. Oh my God, I'm starving. That's what your personality is doing. It's just kind of going through whatever's going on with your life. Your higher intuitive voice is going, I feel something's going on with my aunt. I better call her. That's a little bit more intuitive intelligence. Okay? So it's a higher voice.
What do you call that?
I call it intuitive intelligence because it's a higher consciousness. It's not your ego saying, oh, I think you should get a new job because your job sucks. It's not, that's your personality saying that. So if I'm looking at somebody's, like when people do readings on the phone, I'll get questions and people will send questions. If my ego was answering the question, it would be like, okay, is that really a problem? I mean, the ego doesn't care. The ego's sort of worried about itself. The ego is your personality, it's your identity. You may have an underdeveloped ego or an overdeveloped ego or just right. But basically, the ego is your personality. What we want to do with intuition is work from the soul level, and we're going to do some exercises tonight that will get you up into that higher level so you can pick up on intuitive intelligence. That's your soul consciousness. Okay, I'm buying time now. We're just going to get everybody seated. I know it sounds like we started, but everybody got their sheets? Pardon me?
There's more coming. Does everybody have one now?
No, the whole back section here.
There's more coming.
Okay. They have a copier that's like my printer. Okay, but it'll get there. You don't need it yet. It's okay. We're not going to do anything important until everybody's got what they need. All right, so let's start all over again. My name is Mary Roach. I've been doing readings for 33 years. I've been in Virginia Beach since 1991 when I was a student at Atlantic University. And I was already doing readings at that point, but I thought going to AU would get me an education that would allow me to handle serious issues that people asked about in readings. And really, I went to AU for about 8 to 10 years. I think it was a long process. And then I ended up writing a thesis. So some of what we're going to talk about is based on some of the stuff I found I wrote about in the thesis tonight. That's why meaning and purpose is so important. But I will say, for people who are sensitive or empathic, they are the ones who've always been looking for meaning and purpose. As a matter of fact, how many people in here can honestly say that they feel that they're kind of a sensitive person or kind of an empathic person? Sort of, a little bit. See, and if you're not, some people aren't super sensitive, but they're sensitive about some things. So like they may actually tune into, like I had a really great doctor, and I don't know what it was about this guy, I'm sure it was a past life, but he wasn't really sensitive personally, but he was so talented when it came to diagnosis. And I knew that the diagnosis that he was coming up with had to be intuitive, and it was something that he was very sensitive to as far as he didn't tune in the way I would tune into something, but the way he would look at you and he would sort of focus and he'd go, I think this is what's going on with you. And I got to tell you, I can't think of a time he was wrong. So and I've known this guy since maybe 95 or so. So I can't recall a time, I can't think of a time that he was actually ever wrong. So with diagnosis, I mean, emotionally, I don't know if he was super sensitive, but I will say he had some kind of tuning in, and he was always, I will say with his bedside manner with patients, he was always very kind, he was always very gentle, he was always very, really empathic and sensitive to people's feelings. So what's interesting is he developed a really strong ability to work with people and be very careful and kind with them. And yet personally, I don't know if he would consider himself a sensitive person. I don't think he would think that of himself. I don't think that's how he would characterize himself. Yet, I saw this other side of him. So let's talk about empath and sensitivity. And I know that the sheets are coming, so I will talk a little bit about it, and we will go from there. The purpose in having this trait, and if you don't have any sensitivity or empathy, then you want to develop it. And there are people who, you want to develop some. You don't need to be in pain every day, feeling too much. You don't want to live your life, suffering. That's not what this is about. And there are people who are so sensitive that they really do get overwhelmed a lot. But in the case of if you are working on developing sensitivity, it does create a more whole person. It creates a person who's better with other people because they feel what's going on with other people, and so they're going to be more careful about what they say, how they interact, and how the person is responding to them. They're going to be more sensitive to it. That's just a skill. If you can develop it, it's actually a good thing. And people sometimes don't have it initially, or they have it and they're very sensitive and they shut it down because the family they came in from, or the school they went to, or the experiences they had when they were younger, they will shut it down because they need to survive. And whatever's going on, they can't be super open to everything all the time. It's just too much. So they, out of survival, they will shut it down. So what happens is sometime in their life it comes back open. In one case, I will say that I know a guy who was kind of a tough guy. He was in the Navy, and Navy's really popular around here. And what happened was he was really a smart fellow, and he was very successful. And yet he was such a cream puff when it came to his grandkids. When it came to his grandkids, he was like mush. And so it was so interesting. I think with his kids, he had raised them very strict, because I knew one. And he was a super strict man. And lots of rules and stuff. And then when it came to the grandkids, he was completely, that's where all that sensitivity and compassion and empathy opened up for him, and he really changed in the time, that's around the time his grandkids were born, is he started feeling things again because he was done with his career, he was retired, he didn't have to be live by all those rules anymore. You can raise your hands if you still need some handouts. So, we need one up here too? And one up at the front. A lady in the orange. And when you get them, you'll see that there is a handout that says HSP versus empath. And this is just to discuss what an HSP is a highly sensitive person. And empaths are people who are like highly sensitive persons, only they take it one step further. Okay? So when you look at these traits, the sensitives all tend to have a problem. All of these people tend to have issues if they get overwhelmed. If they try to do too much, take 18 credit hours in college, have a job, and have a relationship at the same time, they could crash and burn because it's just too much going on in their lives. So empaths and sensitives have to be careful how much they take on. A lot of artists are sensitives. A lot of people who are creative are sensitives. And the one thing I've found with intuition development is all the people who are in this category could really pick up intuition like this. They just, it wasn't even hard to teach them because they had it right away. Once you told them the steps, they nailed it. So it wasn't that hard to do it. Now, hopefully they continued to use it. I also found creative people who tend to be sensitive, tend to be, one of the qualities of sensitives is that they have detail. They can pick up detail in an environment. They can pick up all kinds of detail. They can feel all kinds of things. They can sense things more maybe than feel it. They can be moved by art. They are very, very attention to detail and conscientious often. If they're working someplace, they're often very detail-oriented. They may be slower because they're detail-oriented, but they'll get it all right. All right, so with this soul group, my opinion about this is the empaths are the old healers. Because their job is to take it one step further. They have to take all the qualities of the sensitive, and then they have to take on the feeling part. So they're the Dear Abbeys of the world. Everybody tells them their problems. They're the ones who actually walk a mile in somebody else's moccasin. They can feel somebody else's suffering. And the reason they probably are good at it is they probably did it in a past life. So if you happen to be an empath, because you pick up on people's feelings and you can feel how they feel, and you feel like they're going down, I feel like I'm going down here, what's going on? That feeling is because they were probably trained to work with people in healing, in the healing arts and other eras, where a person could not talk back to them. If a person couldn't articulate their feelings or what was happening. So a lot of times they had to, or they would say it was a child, and not everybody's articulate. So they would have to feel and sort of join the person and sense what was going on with them. So in this page, and this is just really for your reference, it just talks about any of these qualities. So if you even don't think you have any of these qualities, read down the list. They are similar, they're very similar. But there's a lot of qualities here, there's more. People are writing books about it left and right. This wasn't popular until maybe the last 10 years. The first person who ever wrote about sensitivity and psychicness that I know about was a woman named Marcy Calhoun. She is still alive, I think. She's a psychic in, I think, Oregon. And I've tried to get this book from the bookstore, the book that she wrote. Let me get a better pen. Whiteboard, okay. The book she wrote in the 80s is Are You Really Too Sensitive? It's not a fabulous title, but it was a great book. And when I found this book in Boston in 87, I knew that everything she wrote made sense. And I was already doing psychic classes and had taken, started doing some readings and stuff. And what I found is, you can't even barely read that. Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y, Calhoun, the bookstore can't get her stuff anymore because I think it's out of print. It's really hard to find. Every now and then it comes up on Amazon, but I think it's hard to find. Other psychics have written books, but I really kind of prefer hers because, number one, she was the first one, and 87 is when this one was published. And when I read that book, for me, it was sort of like, yep, this is exactly what's been going on with me. This is exactly what I've been experiencing. This is exactly what I've been going through. And that's when I realized that psychicness wasn't something that was just some gift that you had that only a few people had. That's when I realized all the sensitives and the creative people had pretty much complete access to the same thing. So that's what happened with me. I wasn't born, psychic or seeing dead guys or any stuff like that. I took a class in Massachusetts. I took multiple classes, and in taking the classes and practicing over time, that's how I got better. So Marcy's thing is about sensitivity, and I realized that's when I started teaching psychic development. I felt like this is something that if you're willing to be sensitive for a moment and tune into something. I'm just asking you in this program today, be sensitive for a moment. If you're not feeling sensitive, if you don't feel like that's describing you very well, that I'm asking you to be sensitive and open, from the heart, open for a moment. And once again, we're not teaching psychic stuff, but you're going to be tuning in a little bit today to yourself. You're not going to tune in for anybody else, just for yourself. But Are You Really Too Sensitive was, for me, the beginning. Other people have written books since then, but I really like hers. The therapist came on board in the 90s and started calling people HSPs. So that's when they came on board, and I think there's a couple books written in the 80s that were accurate and helpful, but they found a whole group of people, and they thought maybe it was as much as 1 to 20% of the population. They didn't really know, but a certain percentage of the population had this kind of feeling, had this kind of experience. And this therapist, I'm thinking about, her name was A.R.E, A-R-O-N. She wrote a book called The Highly Sensitive Person, HSP, and this is in the early 90s. And that's when the psychologists and the psychics started sort of putting their heads together, at least putting the material together that says, hey, this is a soul group out there that's come back in, and maybe they're having to learn to work with the world a little differently than before. They don't have a temple, so they may be having problems. They can't hide from society. A lot of them are thrown in there, and they're told them to get jobs and go to school and learn things, and so they often have to learn how to cope with the world a little bit more. So anyway, that's Marcy's book. I don't know if you'll be able to find it if you're interested in it, but you could keep trying, but I think it was written so long ago it may be out of print.
You can try bookfinder.com.
Okay, he said try bookfinder.com. You might find it. You might find it used. Amazon has it today, huh? Some days they don't. So if you want to get one, get it while it's still there. And they often print them. I think that Amazon will print them again. Okay. How many people, when you have an issue going on in your life, there's something going on, something stressing you out, how many of you feel more or less maybe out of control, maybe a little victimized, maybe a little bummed out, maybe powerless? Anybody feel that way when something's really going wrong in your life? Okay, and that's how most humans feel when something's happening, right? Something goes out of control, somebody dies, somebody gets terribly sick. This is life, and most of you guys are old enough to know, have lost people. You've all been through enough experiences where there's been hardship and difficulties, so you know that sometimes getting through things can be difficult. And there are times when you just feel completely alone. And what we're going to talk about here is that with this particular soul group coming back into focus, and I feel like that they are soul groups, and I feel that they are coming back kind of into prominence in society. I don't see a ton of them out there, but I see a ton of them here. I don't see a ton of them out in the world, but I think that they're coming and finding their place, and they're starting to take their place in the world. So I think that's what you're going to see with this particular group, is that they're going to get stronger and stronger because, like I said, the more that they can take their niche in the world, the more they treat people with compassion and respect and love, the more it changes the tone of the world. So this soul group isn't about power. This soul group isn't about worldly power anyway. They may have positions of authority. I've met some very eloquent, graceful, caring, loving, compassionate people who have the qualities of sensitive and compassionate people, but they have all those qualities, and they are in public service somewhere. So a lot of these in the world, they're out there doing their work. And so for the most part, what we're trying to do here is get people to be aware of that the kind of like the superpower that sensitives and empaths have is their connection to spirit. And by being on earth and having all these lives and all these experiences, you often forget that that's your superpower. That that's what you have that connects you to spirit. And once again, we're not talking about church or religion. Everybody has their own way of working with that. But we're really talking about getting answers and insights. This is the soul group that starts to look for answers and insights when something happens and somebody dies. They're the ones looking for dreams. If something happens with an illness, they start watching for their hunches and intuition. So this is the soul group that's the seekers. And so a lot of what we're doing here is shifting from the ego personality to the soul. And that's what the 21st century is about. It's going to be about switching from ego, personality, identity, to the soul identity. And we're going to go further than that. But basically right now, we're switching between those two ideas. And so this soul group is more acclimated towards doing this type of thing because they've always been connected. They just are the ones that kind of forgot sometimes because they were told they were born in this life and somebody said, well, go be an accountant. You need to have a job. So a lot of times this soul group was also asked specifically to get more efficient at dealing with the earth. So if you are a person who's really sensitive and really empathic and you've had a heck of a time dealing with the earth, it's okay. You came in to get used to the earth and to get better at dealing with it and to get better at time and space and all the rules the earth has, and earth has lots of rules. And so you're here to get better at that thing so you can take up your place in the world and help change it. And once again, you don't have to be president, you don't have to be the head of a giant association, you don't have to be in charge of anything big. You have to be yourself and you have to find your own path. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay. Do we have all the handouts back? Everybody have a handout? You guys have handouts? Go ahead. If we need more seats, there's a couple seats over here on this side. Okay, so and all I did, if anybody just came in, I just mentioned what highly sensitive people and empaths are. All empaths are highly sensitive, but not all highly sensitive people are empaths. There is a difference. Some sensitives don't feel what other people feel. The empaths feel it because, like I said, my theory is they were the old healers. Their job was to feel it. That's why they have trouble not feeling it. They have to take classes in protection because they don't know how to not feel something, because they were taught to feel something. So, and they're not taught in just one life, usually taught in multiple lifetimes. All right, so now we're going to get this page out called Meeting Self and Self. This is the page you need, and I hope you all have pens or pencils or something to write with, or a good memory. Because all the exercises we're going to do in here tonight, you can easily do again when you go home, this weekend or something. So we're going to start this here. What I would like you to do in the next 5 or so minutes while I'm talking is bring to mind an idea or a specific problem or issue that you're currently experiencing, that you're having in your life now, or something that may not be a current issue, but has been a huge influence on your life. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. My mom, who has now passed away, she and her sisters and brother lost their mother at age, I think they were all in their early teens, like 11, 12, 13, something like that. And they were all very young when their mother died in 1937. So it's not like it was one type of problem, but that experience influenced the rest of their lives. And as they got better, as they healed the loss of their mother and learned to nurture themselves and other things that happened with them, that was their experience of, it was an influence. The loss of the mother was an influence that colored the way they saw their life. And it also, I will say, made some of the family members more open to spirituality, not necessarily religion. We were all Catholic, so that was a gimme. But the religion was something that they didn't always get the satisfaction from, because a lot of the priests will say, well, now, they said to my aunt, one priest said to my aunt, well, now the Virgin Mary is your mother. And that's kind of hollow. I realize there's something good you might be able to take from it if you were an adult and could figure it out. I'm not sure an 11-year-old can work with that. And so that type of experience was something that did color their lives. So if something colored your life, something changed your life, something happens, there was an accident, there was something, you can use that if you don't have a current problem. But most of you probably have something that's bugging you right now. I'm pretty sure something is. So what I want you to do in the first thing under meeting self and self is just write down the issue. And just take your time, or you could just use, if you don't want anyone to ever read this and know what you said, because you have to go home and the problem is at home, then you can write special initials that only you understand what it means. So what we're going to do here is do a little exercise, because the only way this is meaningful, the only way you're going to have meaning and purpose in your life is if you use your own intuition. And the only qualification you have to have for using your own intuition is a pulse. If you're alive, you're all set. So this soul group finds it somewhat easier to work with. Some people have a little bit more difficulty. So don't get on your own. Don't be upset if it doesn't come out perfectly. This is something that can also grow. So we can do this exercise tonight, and you may be driving the car to work tomorrow and get an aha. Okay? So the second question under A is your personality. Your personality is been formed. You're all adults. You know who you are. You know what you like. You know what you eat. You know what is important in your life. You know something about yourself. So the personality is a self. We'll call it the self. It's self with a little s, but it's a self. So I want you to write down your emotional reaction to an issue, the issue you've mentioned, or to the issue that is the lifelong influence. So if there is something that made you feel, the type of example would be powerless, empty, depressed, frustrated, angry, adjectives. Find some adjectives. So write down the human experience, because basically the personality has to have a reaction or a response to things. So if something's frustrating you, it may not be horrible, it may be a minor frustration, or it may be really a big one. Either way, just write down your reaction. Okay? And you can keep writing. So what we're doing with meeting self and self is we're going to do a little exercise where we move from the personality level of development, where you're just, your own self. And I'm gonna encourage you, when we do this exercise, I will do a visualization with you, and we're gonna go up 7 stairs. And there's a specific reason it's 7 stairs, because the 7th level is the Akashic record level. The Akashic record is the Sanskrit word for your soul history. So basically your soul history is on the 7th level. So we will start at 1 and go to 7. So that's what we're going to be doing here, just so that you know. And this is going to be in the way if I don't erase it all the way. And I will say that the language of the soul is imagination. So I will say that. You don't have to worry about it. And, but basically, in this reverie, I'm going to say a bunch of different words, because some of you are going to be able to see things. Some of you are going to feel things or sense things. Some of you are going to hear it in your head. So it's see, feel, sense, hear, or know. No is intuition. You just know. I know what the answer is. And I don't want you to get caught up when I describe the steps. Please don't get caught up in describing each step. It'll drive you crazy. So some people are real visual people, and they'll be like, oh my God, that's marble. And they start going up these steps, and they're really visualizing, oh, there's a monkey on one stair. And so you don't need to worry about the steps too much. You can just know that the steps are there. But if you are a person that does not see super well, then I'm going to say feel, sense, hear it, because you may hear information, or know. That is the language of the soul. The soul will speak to you in a way that allows you to understand what's happening. And those of you who are super visual, you're totally going to be able to see something. Those of you who are clairaudient or hear things, and that's what I have clairaudience and intuition. So basically clairaudience is I'll hear in my head, and it sounds like my voice, only way smarter. So it's much more intuitive intelligence. It's from the higher level. So if we're here down here on the personality, 1, right? This is where we are, the ego. We're here, this is our personality. 7 is soul. And so on and so on. So this is going to be the Akashic record for you. That basically just means your soul history, and your soul history includes this life. Because you're already here. You're already living. So basically, this is the steps we're going to go. So I will say see, sense, feel, hear, or know, just to make sure that it's not just seeing, because that's the one problem when I teach this class is people are like, I can't see it. So how many people here are comfortable with the word see? Just 2. Okay, how many? 3? How many people are 4? How many people are comfortable with like hear it, sense it, just know that it's there? Okay, so, you guys will be able to do this. And we'll talk about it if you want to talk about it. Anybody who wants to volunteer, you guys can volunteer to talk about it. Okay, there are 3 things we do with every time we're going to tune in. So if you're going to go home and do this, I want you to do 3 things before you tune in. This is not, like I said, it's still not a psychic program, but I want you to do this for your own safety and for your own information. The first thing I want you to do is breathe. If you don't breathe, it's bad in several different ways. But breathing is incredibly important. If you get stressed, if you get anxious, if you start thinking too much in the middle of the process, okay, blow it out. Breath is a key to tuning in. Without breath, it's very hard. It's not just because you have to talk if you're doing readings. It's because breath allows you to center, breath allows you to focus, and breath allows you to get back to yourself in a way that you can go, okay. And then the more you breathe, the whole goal is to move from, oh, I'm stressed about this. Did I park my car? My lights on? What's going on over here? All that chatter. Oh, okay. A car's okay. And then you keep moving up. You keep taking the breath. So breath is going to be important. And I'll tell you to breathe. And then I'm going to have you say a prayer of protection at home, by yourself, or in this room. Either way. I'm not going to say it for you. You have to decide what you say. What I usually say for my own work is the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father. You can say what works for you in your head quietly. Some people may want to do a different kind of Sanskrit thing. You can all do whatever you want. But basically, say a prayer of protection. It can't be a 4.5-hour prayer. It needs to be under a minute. Okay? Under a minute and a half. Okay, set your intention, and I will set it for you in the exercise. And I will say it while we're doing it, because our intention is to talk to our higher self. And remember, our personality feels powerless, weak, hurt, damaged, messed up. Our soul says, oh, it's all good. You're okay. And you will notice that some people, they're already coming from that level. They really are very centered. And I'm not saying they're saying okay to shut people up. A lot of people have gotten to this through this development over the last 20 years where people are much more centered. Some people are coming from that place. And sometimes you'll be at Centera and you find a nurse who walks in and you feel completely calm and relaxed after she's been talking to you. And it's that type of person who's already coming from this level because she's worked on this level to work with you. That somewhere she knows that she needs to calm you down. So she or he, I should say, I know it's not just women anymore, it's men too. They come in and by the time they're gone, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. Okay, we're good. We're doing good. And so that's when you start to get back to yourself. When you're all anxious and tight as a ball and all messed up, that's when your personality is having some stress and anxiety. So let's do this exercise. What we're going to do is you are going to get a little insight into the question that you've asked, that you put on the paper. And that's why I had you put it on the paper first. You're going to get a little bit of insight into this. You may get a whole answer, you may get parts of the answer, you may get enough answer that you're pleased with what you're getting. So everybody, feet flat on the floor so you don't fall off the chair, because I've actually done that before. It's really embarrassing. So feet flat on the floor, and what we're going to do is you're going to take a really deep breath. Have your pencil and paper around somewhere so you can pick it up and take a few notes, because the way intuition works, it's not going to be as loud as my voice. My voice is relatively loud, relatively strong. Other people, that you expect intuition to be that strong. People get readings, a lot of times they'll be like, wow, she sounds so sure of that. It's not that I hear it that way. That's not how it comes into me. I say it that way because it's just the build I have. But when I hear it, it's very subtle. That's why sensitivity really plays a role. So you have to, what you'll get is a little wisp, like a little, and you go, oh, that feels interesting. Okay, I think I know what that is. That's all intuition is. Okay, that's it. And so what you want to do is start feeling, sensing, hearing, seeing, or knowing what that means. And most psychics, our biggest mistake, and I know there's several psychics in this room, biggest mistake, misinterpretation. We'll get the, and we'll interpret it wrong. If we interpret it wrong, I know some of you are like, yep, got that. I knew, no, some of you know what I'm talking about. So that's the mistake. But when you get it, just put it down as you pick up on it. Don't just say it. If you get a picture of a circus clown, write down circus clown. If you get a good vibe about it, you can say good vibe. If you get neutral, just don't try to read anything into it. Just say, well, that was a circus clown. And then next thing you know, something else happens and we'll go from there. So take a deep breath. Everyone close your eyes. I think it's better if you close your eyes and focus. I would like some really deep breaths here. Okay, one more, really deep one. There you go. You guys are really fast, actually. We're looking for the perspective from the cosmos, from soul. So, in your own mind, I want you to do a prayer of protection that you feel like you can trust, that you feel confident about. I'm going to set our intention. Our intention is to have a dialogue with our higher self. We will see or hear or sense or feel or know, and we will gain information that gives us insight into the question we wrote down on our paper. That's our intention. Okay? You will see, sense, feel, hear, or know a staircase is in front of you. And this staircase is stretching out in front of you. It's got 7 steps. The top level is just an open space. I want you to start to ascend the staircase. Every step will bring you higher in consciousness. We're going to start with 1. We're going to go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You're now on the 7th level, the Akashic record level of your own consciousness. It's not a place, it is an experience. It's a state of mind. You will see a shimmering, iridescent figure radiating love and kindness approaching you. You can either see it, sense it, feel it, hear it, or know that this figure is present before you. This figure holds a very large book in their hands, and it is open to a page. They signal you to come closer and to look at the page that they are showing you in the book. And once again, you don't have to look at it. You can feel it or sense what's on the page. You can hear your higher self read the page to you, or you can just know what's on this page. This is information that is going to help you and give you insight into the question you asked. Now, what I want you to do is your higher self, this shimmering figure, is going to point and turn some pages in the book until it's at the page that is your current age. Your current chronological age. And on this page is the reason or the lesson behind your current issue or the lifelong issue. Try to remember what was just said to you. Now the shimmering figure will put the book down and they will pick up a gift. It's in a box. It may be wrapped, and they're going to give this gift to you. You can feel free to open it, unwrap the gift, open it, see what's in the box. It could be a physical or a symbolic or a non-physical thing, could be anything. Now take the gift with you. This is your gift, it's yours. No one's going to take it. Thank your higher self, however you experienced your higher self. And I want you to tell them that you will be back in the future to get more information on your life whenever there is an issue. Now take your gift and come to the top of the stairs, and I want you to descend back into this room. We're on 7. We're going to come down to 6. Bringing your gift with you now. 5, 4, coming back into normal consciousness. 3, 2, 1. You're back at A.R.E. on 67th and Atlantic. It's 7:21 p.m. on October 30th. If you want to take a few notes, this would be a good time to take any notes of anything that came up. If something didn't come up, you can do this again later. You can actually get more information if you don't fully understand what this is. And on the section that's below that, the soul self with a capital S, that's a good place to write down any insights that you got on this level, because your soul would have been doing the talking. And the one thing I will say about visualizing the soul, it's good to not try to put a face to it. It could look like you, actually. But it's good to not try to visualize it, unless you're super artistic. But sometimes just a figure is enough to make it work. Yes?
I have a hard time differentiating if it's the soul that I'm hearing or if it's my own thoughts.
So here's her question. She has a hard time differentiating if it's the soul that you're speaking to or if it's your own thoughts. Well, there's two things that will define that. One is we're asking the soul to speak to your personality. We set that up at the beginning. Your soul is speaking to your personality. That's how this is working. And we set our intention that our soul was going to speak to our personality. Your intention is the thing that makes the difference. I mean, yes, if you were not focused well, if you got something that was negative or unpleasant or particularly bad, if it was some sort of an ego thing, then you got to go back and do it again. But I would say if you set your intention and you've done the prayer protection, your prayer, it's your own personal prayer, then you would be able to pick up on something that is from a higher level. What's tricky about this is you got a room full of people, it's kind of hot, and so it's hard to sometimes focus on this type of thing in a room. Some people use the energy and actually tune in more deeply. Some people don't like to tune in with a group of people, but that's just the way it is. So you can go home and do it on your own. But the way that you can be sure that if it's constructive, positive, useful information, then it's probably from the soul. The difference I notice between the soul and the personality is like, ugh, I'm not gonna be able to do this. The personality is like, I never get this stuff. I can't do this. So the personality is kind of whiny. Okay, the personality is like, wah. Okay, so the personality has sort of a tendency to let its own fears and anxieties get in the middle of everything. And those of us who, have issues with some of this stuff, and some of us who live with anxiety, we know what we're talking about. So the anxiety, can really be an issue. So if you are getting something that is anxious and stressed out and negative, it's not from your soul. And then you'd have to go back and do the centering and make sure you set your intention and make sure you did the prayer and make sure that you were very focused on it and really truly desired the information. Had enough compassion and love for yourself that you were interested in the information. I will say, people who come for readings, if they don't really want to be there, if they're not really focused, if they're just sort of fooling around, that's not soul groups I need to work with because they're not focused. So my tuning into them is not going to be as good as somebody who really needs to hear something. Okay, so if you really need the information, then your soul will be like, okay, we got this. Breathe, protection, intention, let's go. Your soul will do it because you are your soul. It's not some foreign thing that floats around away from you. It's right there. It's in you. It's part of you. It's not something that's out there. It's you. So what we want to do is let it have a stronger voice in your life. That's what we're trying to do, is let this voice speak to you more. And you know what? It takes practice. So did you want to share anything, or did you just want to go past that?
Yeah, no. When I asked, what I heard was, I'll share what it is.
Okay.
When I was younger and I was in high school, I got a scholarship.
Okay, let me just tell the audience. When she was younger, she was in high school, so she got a scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay?
Was I not loud enough?
Yeah, no, well, I don't know if everyone can hear you.
Okay.
And I got the mic and nobody else, you don't have one, so.
I got a scholarship less like $4,000 a year, and my grandmother raised me, and she was supposed to co-sign on the loan, and she didn't.
Okay, her grandmother raised her, and her grandmother was supposed to co-sign on the loan, but she did not. So this is a life experience that affected you.
And I had a lot of resentment towards her. She died like 3 months later, and I was like in the world on my own, and my life's been a mess.
So she died 3 months later, and you felt abandoned.
Yeah.
Because you're walking around the world with nobody protecting you or looking out for you or any of that stuff.
But I always blame her for my life being ruined, so that
Okay.
was the question. And when I got back,
Grandma, why'd you ruin my life? Okay. That's a fair one. That's a fair one because you were a kid when this happened, and that's probably how you felt. And that's a good example of how the personality feels when something bad happens.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example.
yeah. And so what I heard, and that's why I said I didn't know if it was me or the soul, was get over it.
For those of you who did not hear her, her soul apparently told her to get over it. Just a question. Was that the kind of demeanor your grandma had? Was she a little blunt? Yeah. Sounds like grandma had a hand in this one. Energetically, I mean, and once again, I'm sure she has compassion for you and loves you and all that. But in the end, I think part of it is, do you want this to color the rest of your life? Do you want to have resentment for the rest of your life towards somebody that didn't understand? She probably had financial problems, I'm guessing. And she probably was afraid. I'm sure you weren't flaky, but she may have been afraid that somehow this was going to come back on her and she wouldn't be able to pay it, was probably going to lose her house.
That's what it was.
Okay?
That's what it
That's exactly what it was.
Like,
And yeah, and you were trying to better yourself, and it's a very admirable thing, and it's good. If you ever can better yourself, you want to do it. And so in that situation, you have two worlds colliding. That you are trying to better yourself, and she's fear, once again, the personality level, fear and anxiety. I'm going to lose my house. What if something happens? So she was, in honesty, you know what I think your soul would say, we're just going to elaborate here. I think your soul would say forgive her, not get over it, but I think forgive her. And I think forgive her because she was probably always working on that level. I don't think she meant to stop you from your life, and I don't think she did, really. But I'm just saying, I think that level, it's about forgiveness because her world was very different from what you came in, what you had potential to do in your world was very different than the potential she would have had for hers. Do you see what I mean? And you got to realize the year she was probably born was way before yours. And so she was probably brought up with probably less than she ever needed. She probably never got what she needed. My guess about your grandmother is she probably didn't really get what she needed in life.
yeah, I agree.
So did you get something you needed in this lifetime?
Yeah,
Do you think you're doing a little bit better?
yeah, absolutely. I did end up going to college.
Yeah, you went to college. Okay, what'd you study?
IT.
IT. Oh, okay. So you got a handle on all this IT stuff. That's a real gift, really. So the energy with this type of thing, I would say the get over it could be a little personality sneaking in because when I've done some inspirational writing, the soul usually is very gentle with you. The soul's often very kind. The soul thinks you're fabulous. Okay, the soul thinks, my God, you are amazing. You've made it this far and you've gone through all that. You're great. So the soul thinks you're just amazing. So I didn't get a strong vibe of the soul there, but I did get something that may have a little personality mix from her thinking. You may have actually tuned right into her thinking at the time. You know, because, I don't think she would still say get over it today, but I would say that may have been the type of way she would have handled any problem while she was alive. Now, once they die and they go to the other side, they often soften up. It takes a while for some, but they often soften up and they get a little bit more reasonable and they start to go, yeah, I didn't need to be worried about that. And I think that's what makes the big difference is when you go, I really didn't need to be worried about that. I worried about that for 30 years. I didn't need to be worried about that. And that's the advantage of dying, okay? So when you die, you get to find out all the stuff you worried about. Some of it was a complete waste of time, which is probably what she did find out. So I would go back and do that again, but I would say that get over it, you're right. I would say that's a little bit mixed, sounds like a little bit what your grandmother would say. And I think you were tuning into what she would have said. So I think you were tuning in, but just not to exactly your higher self. I think your higher self would say, oh my God, you did an amazing job. You can let go of this because your life's turned out well anyway. And you did it yourself. And you should take credit for doing it yourself. And you found your way, and that made you a better person. Sometimes when there's hardship and difficulties, it's like, oh my God, I have this terrible hardship. In the middle of it, it's hell. There's no doubt, there's hell. We've all been through it. But when you get past it, you go, wow. I remember one time my mom had cancer, and she said to me, I think I'm stronger. And it started when my dad died. My dad died in '89, and she said, I don't know what month. It was in August that he died. So I want to say it's like September, October, probably maybe about this time of month, this month of the year. It was a few months later. She says to me, I'm a lot stronger than I thought I would be. I didn't know I was this strong. And then she said it again years later. She got breast cancer. And she made a decision to have a double mastectomy. She didn't, at the time, the doctor was insisting she didn't need one. And luckily, somehow, she listened to her intuition. Not that she even thought this was real, but she must have listened to some voice because she had a double mastectomy, and they found 2 different kinds of cancers, one in each breast. And they were only recommending to do one. And it turned out she still would have had cancer in the other breast, and they would never even known it for probably 6 more months, maybe a year. So that's the interesting thing is that she said also, I can't believe I'm this strong. And I said, well, do you want to do reconstruction? She said, no, I don't want to do that. That ship has sailed. She was like, I'm not doing that. I don't need to worry about that. I'm just going to live my life now. And she did. And she was fine. She didn't die of cancer. She died of something else. So I'm just saying years later. So that's the thing is that she was surprised how strong she was. And so I think in some ways what you want to do is maybe I would say a gratitude list, but maybe a list about I'm really kind of amazed at what I've been through, and I did make it, and I did create this. So whatever you go through, it does make you stronger. I know it's probably in songs, and it's like a cliche, but it's kind of true. So we're going to give it some credit. It is kind of true. There's a hand at the back.
But doesn't also get over it imply get above it?
Yeah, okay. That's a very good insight. He's saying get over it implies get above it, which is come to the higher level that says, wow, you're amazing. Look at how you did this on your own. You should give yourself some credit. Versus the ego going, yeah, why did you try to stop me, Grandma? You know, don't worry. And if you don't forgive her, she'll get to be your mom next time. So you gotta work that one out. Or you get to be her mom. Either way. You know, these things, you don't want to get into these things. You want to forgive. And you want to forgive in a way that you really, you don't have to forgive it because they did the right thing. But she did the only thing she probably knew to do. I don't think she was trying to be vindictive, but she probably was super practical and probably filled with anxiety about losing her house. Which I could see that. Both sides make sense. Okay, anybody else have a remark or anything about that exercise? Yep. So this is so Cindy, you were talking about your mother,
right,
in this life.
She's 92, bless her.
She's 92, bless her.
I don't want to have to deal with her stuff being so far away, and so I was having a cranky time, and I asked for help with that.
So your mom is 92, and she lives where?
New York.
New York, okay, and you live in Virginia Beach.
Yes, and I've been a little cranky because she's needed extra help rightly.
Because she has all kinds of, does she have lots of stuff?
She has lots of stuff going on.
Oh, but does she have, are you talking about physical stuff, or are you talking?
She has this, so I'm in charge of making sure that she gets everything that she needs, and it's just been a little extra.
So you've got another job.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about this. Yeah, part of what's going on with this, and this is the human. The human says, I got enough. I don't need to do any more. Oh my God, look at my plate. It's full. And this happens all the time. Everyone's plate is full and then something else happens. Or somebody brings home another cat. Or whatever else happens. There's always something. And so the personality level does have that frustration, which we all go through. It's just human. It's just and acknowledging your human side. In some ways, when I say personality, this is just our regular human consciousness. We'll say regular consciousness. Our higher consciousness we're getting used to working with. But in something like that, I would say that the what was the message?
So yeah, so and then you know, judging yourself because you know better that you shouldn't get so annoyed. So anyway, so then the first thing that they showed me on page 1 was
Page 1, that's right. We had several pages. Yeah.
Was a mountain with a path and a car going up it. But remember the game of life with the little pegs that go in the car? So
Oh yeah, the game of life. Okay, this is those of you over a certain age. The game of life was a board game for those of you who are younger. They would go on the table, and then you put the little things into the little cars, and then you would play the game. Okay.
So I heard the game of life, and then they flipped the pages, and it came to page whatever age I am, and then I heard, because I'm also the clairaudient.
Yeah.
I heard and saw compassion, love, detachment, and patience. And I thought that was interesting because they're all, for the most part, they're the ideals, that we strive for. But the gift was an hourglass.
Compassion, love, detachment, and patience.
And the gift was an hourglass with it about to end.
Oh, good heavens.
Well, she's 92.
I know, TikTok. I get it, TikTok.
But the feeling was, look, you don't have much longer. You can do this.
And that's a perfect example of how the soul talks. Not so bad. Chill out. You know, like that nurse that comes in her room, and when that nurse leaves, you're like, chill.
Yeah.
Not because she put something in the IV, because of her personality calming you down. And so a lot of that compassion, love, detachment, and patience. What's interesting is the detachment's to your personal reaction to having plenty to do in one day and having to do more, and probably having to travel more than you wanted to travel to do that. Because I know you left New York. You weren't going to go back and live up there again. And compassion, love, detachment, and patience. I think those are probably 4 things. In the book, the first page was just any message you could get. And you may not have gotten anything on any page, but what I tried to do was do 3 different possibilities for you to get something from. It's like padding an exercise. You pad these things so that something pops up. So you got something on every level. The hourglass means enjoy your time.
Well, that's, yeah, and I think the detachment part of it was, it's okay to detach empathically from everything, because it's so emotional, and it's okay to detach from that.
That's a good example, yeah. Well, empaths tend to go down the rabbit hole when somebody else is going down the rabbit hole. So if you have a mother, father, child, parent, spouse, and they go down the rabbit hole, the empaths will be like, oh my God, here we go. And they are trying to help, and they're trying to fix it, they're trying to do something, and they're usually losing their mind and tearing their hair out trying to do everything. And it often is exercise in futility, because it's that person's experience, not yours. And this is where the detachment is really helpful. You have to have what they call boundaries, which is something that as empaths are trying to learn. I think a lot of times boundaries are your friend. There's other people in the world, boundaries, they've worked with them forever. They love boundaries. That's their thing. They're the kings and queens of boundaries. Most of the people here are probably have developed some, but if you're super open, then you're going to work with some boundaries and some detachment. So that makes sense, though, because that is what the higher self would do. And it's like I said, this is an exercise you can do again. Anybody else have any questions or anything because that's a good example of the higher self. And sometimes the first shot out, this is the first shot out. If you don't do this every day, you're not going to get it perfectly. You don't have to expect that you get it perfectly. You just want to try it again. Practice makes perfect. Hand over here.
Well, what I was working with is getting blocks away so that I can have the monies to come for my big projects that will shape the world, right?
So you're getting, what was going away? You're putting your money away?
No, I need the money for my projects. I'm a filmmaker.
Okay, so you're a filmmaker, and you guys, it takes a lot of money to make a movie, okay? So that was your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very frustrated of not getting the money, and even though they're huge, right? So what they showed me was that there was fear.
Okay.
Really,
So the first page,
fear.
fear, okay? So your biggest fear is you'll never get enough money for this and it'll never happen.
No, actually, the fear is if I get money, then I can be recognized in forces of evil can go, there she is, go get her. You know what I mean? More hiding myself.
Well, you're really thinking this one through, okay. See, most of us just stop at getting successful. We worry about the forces of evil later, because they'll show up. Somebody will show up to screw it up. But with the fear, first of all, if you're doing something that's going to bring good into the world, I wouldn't spend a lot of time focusing on the negative, because if you're here to do the good, if you die before you do it, you're going to be annoyed with yourself for not doing it. So you have to decide, am I going to do this? Or is this something that I would just as soon take a pass on? So I think the answer is you would do it anyway. And if your fear is the forces of evil are going to come after you, did you have a gift? Did you have any kind of gift here?
Yeah, the gift that they gave me was an outfit.
A knight in shining armor? Don't. Okay. I know we all are the products of Disney. Disney really got into our heads somewhere. The knight. Okay, so what that implies is knights were hired for protection, right? So you learn to protect yourself. Now, we can say that according to that visualization or imagery, that that you could be protected anyway. Even if you don't know, you could be protected. But the other part of it is you could create protection for yourself. Anything that would be negative and negative that would say want to stop you from doing what you're doing or any of that type of stuff. I don't spend a lot of time on that thinking. I feel like if you're here to do what you're doing, you've got guardian angels, you've got helpers, you're going to be able to accomplish it. And to worry excessively about being successful because somebody's going to come after you, or this energy is going to stop you, or is going to attack you, I wouldn't worry about that, because the sign is the knights are there to protect you. Now, once again, if you could go with the guardian angel side, you can go with the fact that your vibration, if you do this project, would maybe start here, starting the project, but say you do this project and you learn a lot and you grow during the project, then your vibration's up here. Nothing's going to bother you there.
I got it.
So you're your own safety right there, your own safety net by going through the experience. Okay? All right. Yep, one more.
Okay, so my person looked like the typical Jesus guy, but his
Typical Jesus.
personality.
Handsome. Okay.
Personality and stuff,
Tall.
because it was like, hey man, what's up?
So Jesus was extra personable.
Yeah, we were personable. It was like, hey man, so is that my personality or was that the
What religion were you raised in? None?
Methodist?
Average?
Baptist,
Regular? Average regular. Average regular, size 7. Okay, and so what did Jesus say?
So just, we were,
He was cool.
so yeah, it was,
See, my sense is Jesus was totally cool.
yeah.
I mean, I think he would sit down and have a beer. But then I think Casey would sit down and have a beer. I think they're all okay. Okay, I don't think they're,
But I guess it was that.
I don't think you have divas here.
I don't think I got to the soul. Maybe that was just my personality. Because I saw it was like.
What was your question? Can you share it without embarrassing yourself, or?
See, that was the thing. I hadn't really written a specific question. It was just more issues, so it wasn't a formed question.
What's the specific issue?
So.
What can you share that
Okay,
wouldn't
so-
bother you later on? Because this is on tape.
Okay, yeah. So let's see, like money, success, of course.
Okay.
Just general stuff like.
So stuff that
like
makes you
career,
anxious.
Yeah, and stuff like that.
So again, we have anxiety. Our friend. Our friend anxiety comes back in there. So money, success, not dying in the gutter, basically.
Yes.
Is that the basic thing? Not dying in the gutter, generally. Okay, and achieving what you're here to do.
Yes.
I keep looking at Cindy. Okay, so that's the question. And then Jesus popped in, and he was very personable. And then what was anything that you got in any of the pages?
So I didn't really have a page. I had like this purple mud
Purple mud.
for a while, and then when you said gift, it was.
Sometimes your consciousness will skip the whole exercise, which is okay. Sometimes you don't need that information. It's okay. It happens every time I do one of these. Okay.
And then the gift was.
Purple mud.
Purple mud, like purpley.
Purple mud, and then what?
And then it was a white shining bird with gold trim and. Yeah.
White and gold shining bird. Well, you know what a bird is, don't you? I know you know it has wings and stuff, but I'm just talking about. Are you a person working with your intuition?
I mean, I'm an artist. Yeah.
You're an artist. So for money and success, artists have a hard time having success sometimes because, let's face it, unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, it's not that easy to be an artist. And so money and success can be elusive. And so the purple mud, it's interesting, purple mud, because purple would imply healing. Mud would imply that you're muddled in your thinking right now at this stage of your life, but something else is healing. So there may be, because purple would, see, if it was brown mud, I'd say, okay, this is an earthly situation. Because it's purple mud, I'd say you're probably working on something else in your life right now. And so you're probably healing something. The white, gold, shining, shimmering bird is a fabulous gift, because that basically the gift was what was, the intention behind the gift was, it was something that you have, that you can bring with you, but you probably have it in you as something you've already developed. It's one of your talents, it's one of your skills, it's something that you're good at. A bird is symbolic. It flies between earth and the heavens, okay? So a bird symbol is actually not a terrible one, because the bird lives on earth like you, but it can soar into the heavens. And so it's messages and connection and interaction between the heavens and you here on earth. So basically, I would do some meditation on this beautiful gold shining bird, because I suspect that a lot of artists, and some come from the ego, but many, and art musicians and other types of creative souls, get a lot of their information in downloads. They're usually very intuitive people. And when they're really tuning into something, they are kind of altered the same way I would be doing a reading, and the other psychics in here who do readings. So it would be the same state of mind that you would be altered and you'd be bringing in the information. So to me, you're developing the relationship with your intuition, your inner voice, your white, gold shining bird. You got a fancy bird here, a gold trimmed bird. And gold would imply success, but it would also imply that gold is a higher vibration color. It's from the soul level. It's not from the personality. Gold implies higher consciousness. So white is all the colors, so it's all filled with light. It's all the colors. So my sense is that you're healing some things right now and you're a little muddled. You're trying to work through this. But ultimately, if you keep going with your gut, your intuition, your feelings, and keep developing this, and maybe even do some visualizations with it, and even maybe find some great vision board with this, vision boards are fun. You can fool around because you're creative. You could sort of find some great pictures of birds and develop a relationship and use the bird as a symbol for yourself. That bird is now your symbol. I would take it and run with it. Okay. All right, so that's the higher self. So all the stuff, the money and success would be only if you're true to that higher voice. Because your question was, I'm muddled about this, and this says, you don't need to be muddled, but you got to be true to yourself. Don't do it because somebody says you'll make a lot of money. Don't do it because somebody else thinks it's a great idea. Do it because it's what your soul is here to do. Okay, do right by your own soul. All right, so that's true of everybody here. I'm sure there's something there. Okay, so let's go on because we're gonna do one more exercise. But before we do the exercise, we're gonna do the same type of thing, and I'm just gonna use the staircase twice because that way you get used to doing it twice, and I'll walk you through it the same way. Okay, I know it's hot in here, but just hang in there, people. It'll be cold apparently on Saturday. It's gonna be like 81 tomorrow on Halloween. Okay. There's sort of an evolution. Does everybody here feel like they know what their purpose is? Looking for it? Working on it? Trying to get it? Okay, here's the good news. Okay, service, there's an evolution of how you've come to service in this world, and service in this world leads to purpose. Purpose leads to some of these soul patterns that you may have worked with in this life, and then it really ultimately leads to your soul mission. So let me explain this. Service is something that everybody is asked to do. This soul group is not going to have a lot of trouble with it, but everyone's going to be asked to do it on some level. And service is usually just learning how to not be, it's basically doing for others. You may cut their grass, you may be a healer, you may help other people. It's really what this is it's not about you. And if you're going to be an intuitive, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a nurse, you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be anybody who's working with other people, you're going to be way more successful when you're thinking about others than when you're thinking about yourself. So basically, and it means, even, for example, the time, like the nurse comes, I'm just going to give that example of the nurse that comes into your cubicle in the ER, who's really loving and helpful, and you calm down around that person is focused on your needs at that moment. That's why you don't feel so bad. You feel like your needs are being met. You're not as afraid. You're not as anxious. So service is something about doing for others. It's basically about others. And really, it can become selfless. And as you move into this on higher levels, it really comes down to that you're living for something higher than yourself. A lot of people start off really getting into healing. I don't know anybody who gets into healing for themselves. It's very hard to get it, be a healer. There's no money in it. There's no, people think you're nuts. Or if you're going to be a psychic, they think you're crazy. So I'm just saying there's a lot of this type of work that isn't necessarily glamorous or fun, or people think it's, they think well of you doing it. So the higher service energy is like when you say people join the armed forces. They're not joining the armed forces. Maybe they like the military. Maybe they've had past lives in the military. They may have the affinity for the balance and the way that the military works. But ultimately, the service is to the country. They're not joining it just, I mean, they may be getting something out, but many people are doing it because let's face it, if you are going to Iraq or Afghanistan or someplace, you might die. And so, yeah, you learn, you get skills. There's reasons people join. I think even if you join unconsciously, not knowing why, at some point you're going to get to the awareness that this is a higher service. This isn't about me. This is about being of service to something bigger than me. So that's what service is. What happens is when you work for the greater good somewhere, somehow you do something that helps the world. You work for the greater good. Teachers work for the greater good. Many healers, some people in the medical system, many people in the medical system, I don't know which ones, but there are people out there who are doing a good job. And they are really working to make the world a better place just in their area. So how many people here work with people? Humans, every day, or many days. Okay, if you work with people, you're working for the greater good. There are people who create policies. I had a client recently who was phenomenally good at coming up with policies, the type of thing they have in politics, but the governments run on these policies. And she could write the policies, she could articulate the policies, which they were complicated, but she could write them, she could see what the needs were, she could translate it into a policy and write it out, and then explain it to people. That's not particularly easy, but that was still working for the greater good. So what you want to do, I mean, you can be veterinarian and work for the greater good, because let's face it, the animals heal people, and without the animals and the pets, some people would not be able to love anybody. I mean, sometimes the only person that a person can trust for periods of their life would be their dog. So sometimes that is working for the greater good. So people with IT who are keeping our computers going and some of that type of thing, that can also be for the greater good. People who are writing strategies to keep them from being broken into so that our banks don't get, all of our personal information doesn't get out there, are doing something for the greater good. So you are doing something, and what I do is just on the first page, this is the last page you have, the evolution of purpose. This is basically the evolution of purpose. It's going to start with service. And somewhere in your life, you did something for somebody else. It's that simple. That's section 1 in a nutshell. But write down what you did. Something that made you learn how to give to people. Some people have jobs that did it. Some people took care of parents when they were sick. Some people took care of children. Some people took care of their siblings because their parents were working. There's a million ways this can happen. Some people learned to take care of other beings, and people gave them a cat. And then somebody else said, hey, I got a cat. You want my cat? And next thing you know, they're taking care of 8 cats. Okay? That is still a service, and that's still a good thing. And those cats are bringing goodness in the world on some level. So basically, because animals do service, they are part of that service energy. They're serving us while we're learning about service to them. All right? So what we're doing with service is just write down, when you have free time, what service do you remember doing? What were you particularly good at? You don't have to have been a star at it. You just need to have done it. Service counts. Service matters. Because service is the baseline to get into life purpose. And life purpose is what we're looking at, because this whole talk is about meaning and purpose. Everybody has a purpose. You cannot incarnate without a purpose. What's interesting about purposes is that they change over time. They don't stay the same. Your 19-year-old purpose is different from your 40-year-old purpose. It may have similar elements in it, but as you accomplish things and learn things and you grow, it evolves. It evolves with you. Usually the purpose becomes bigger and greater, not smaller. Okay, so service is just, I'll give you an example. I used to work in human services with people with developmental disabilities, and part of the job was working with people. I was a manager of a group home, and this is in Massachusetts in the 80s. And a lot of that was, even though we were doing readings and theater and other stuff, a lot of that really was, we had people who could not communicate perfectly to us. They didn't articulate perfectly. And without that job, I did it for, I think, 5 years. That job taught me a lot about myself, about other people, about people with disabilities, about reincarnation, actually. It taught me a lot. And it really taught me a lot about being able to feel what was happening with a person if I couldn't understand, or if I saw their behavior and I thought their behavior was bad or hard to understand or hard to work with. This was helpful. This job was helpful to me on the service level, because let's face it, it pays nothing. And we should pay our people in this work much, much better. But what happens is that it teaches you to understand more of the world and the depth and breadth of the world and the way it works. So you all have your own service experience. Take notes, see what's in there. The purpose experience going into the soul patterns is interesting because this is going to play a part. Any skill you develop on the service level, anything you're really good at is coming with you. The soul pattern is going to be self meeting self. So basically, self is meeting aspects of yourself. So if you have a soul pattern or a major issue, this should be a small s. So small self meets big self. But very often, self meets self. When you meet something you did in the past life, when you meet some lesson you have to have, that's going to be part of your life purpose. And I know that people put it differently, but I've really learned a lot of this from readings. And what I've really learned is that service is important because everyone's going to have a job or an experience somewhere that doesn't seem to make sense to them, doesn't seem to fit in with everything they're doing. I've seen really, really sensitive people who were accountants. And they were good accountants, but it actually played a role at some point in their lives. They may have had to manage somebody else's money at some point, but they actually ended up being, acclimating to the earth better because they had to deal with money and numbers. And they became more practical and more confident in dealing with the earth because they were accountants. So, life purpose and soul pattern is really, we're going to look at any lesson or any issue that you brought in with you. You brought it in with you. It's not an accident. And no matter how old you are, I don't care if you're 20 or 80, you came in to work on something. Now, something needed correction, something needed balance. So what we're looking at is once you have have a problem, and I don't mean an incidental problem, but say you have a problem like that's a life-oriented problem, like I've resented my grandmother forever and I had to build my own life, or like my mother, their family died and they had to learn to nurture themselves because they had nobody left in their family that was going to nurture them. That type of thing, once you meet the experience and acknowledge it and say, yeah, this is what I came in and this is what I'm learning this lifetime, then once you deal with that and face it and work with it and stop fighting it, that's when you're able to gain the wisdom from it. And that's really when the pattern stops being as active. And I'll tell you about active patterns because I've worked with people where I tune into them, say in 1991. And there's definitely a major issue with the husband or the wife or whatever. And say I tune into them in 93, same pattern. Oh, yeah, still having an issue, still working out that thing. And so they're still working it out, still trying to make sense of it. And you talk about what they're learning and what the purpose of it is. And often they're still meeting something from the past because a lot of times you don't marry people or give birth to people or be born in a family without some kind of karma. And karma only means the word memory, but karma means, oh, here we go. You're going to be looking at some stuff. You're going to be looking at some stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean bad because it only means the word memory. It could be you have karma to remember on a soul level that you're really good at singing. I've seen my son. He's very, very good with music. He can hear it. I mean, he came in being able to hear it better than most people. He can hear sound better than most people. It's a thing he brought with him. That's also karma. It's good karma. It's really more dharma, but it's basically good. There's something about him that remembers that experience. So the idea is, although we think of karma as negative, it can be a talent. It can be a skill. It can be something you're just naturally walking in, you're naturally good at. Some people are great cooks. I'm not one of them, but there are great cooks out there. And so so basically anything you brought in with you, you want to see that as a win. Okay, I brought it with me, it's good. Any issue that you have, what you're going to try to glean from it is the wisdom. Once you understand it and you face it and you're not afraid of dealing with it, life becomes a lot easier. So, what my feeling is that your life purpose is always going to involve certain karmic lessons and soul patterns. That's my feeling about. That's my opinion. I don't know what Casey said about it, but that's my opinion. Life purpose and soul patterns kind of go hand in hand. As you evolve, face these patterns, work through them, you're going to be on your soul mission. Soul mission takes all those talents that you developed in this life and other ones. Okay, so talents that you were good at, things you happen to have talent and skills in. Takes all those talents. Some can sing, some dance, some are good at intervening, some are great mediators. Talents plus the wisdom that you learned over here. And that's why this is 90% of why you bothered to be born this time around. Any life purpose is going to have soul mission, is going to have some kind of soul pattern in it. Any soul pattern, any problem that you've run into over and over again, any issue you're going to have, once you meet it and face it and acknowledge it and deal with it, it's going to diminish. And then bit by bit, you're going to gain understanding, awareness, wisdom even. And basically, when you're done with some of these, and there are people I've met that are done with these patterns, they're done with it, they've got to the point where they've graduated, they're kind of clean, all their soul agreements are cleaned up. They're done, they're free to go. But they're staying because they have other things they want to do with their soul mission. So the soul mission is really your talents, because you all have talents. You all have an idea what you're good at. You're all grown up enough to know something about your talents, or what people say you're good at, even if you go, oh, I'm not, but you really are, okay? And the wisdom. So each one of you has a unique mission here, because each one of you has unique lessons, soul patterns, and experiences that have taught you wisdom, and they're different. It's different kinds of wisdom. It's different elements of wisdom. But in the end, you're going to mix that wisdom with all of your unique talents. Each one of you has different talents. If we ask 20 people in this room what their talents are, we get some repeated talents here and there, but everybody would have a different unique combination. So this unique combination of talents and wisdom is your soul mission. And that's what you're here for. And that's why this soul group, as sensitives or empaths or anybody that's trying to work with people or help the world or make the world a better place, you want to work on understanding anything that's a problem or any pattern. And you want to understand that your soul mission is your talents and your wisdom. On the page, Evolution of Purpose, you get a chance to write down your service, or actually service was the other page. Yes, you get to write it down on the top, any service you can remember. Babysitting, if you were particularly good at it. When I babysat kids, we always did theater. So shows what I was focused on. But we always did entertainment and did West Side Story and all those types of shows. I'm not sure that's purpose, but the time certainly passed pretty fast. So basically, whatever you were good at, write down in service. Now, life purpose and soul patterns. Let's do a little exercise. And we're going to do it the same way as we did it before, as to not get stressed about it. We're going to do the exact similar thing. You're going to go up the same 7 stairs. You don't have to see them. You can feel them, sense them, know them, or hear the information. And once again, if you don't get anything, or you get tired, or you're feeling like you're sweating to death right now because you're too hot, try to chill while we're breathing. Maybe you'll get something. And do it again later, or tonight, or tomorrow, or over the weekend. But do it when nobody is going to disturb you, because you want peace while you're doing this. You do not want to stress people when you're doing this. All right. So we're going to do this. And we're going to look at a soul pattern that you experienced someplace else and came in to fix it. That's why you were born, okay? One of the reasons. There's probably 40 reasons you were born, but one of the reasons is because something was going on in a past life. And this lifetime, this is what you're looking at or dealing with. I will also say, if you don't believe in reincarnation, that's fine, because these soul patterns often have evidence earlier in this life. There are elements in this life that would sort of imply that this is what this person had to go through, or they were abandoned, or their mom died, or whatever happened. They're usually, the soul pattern will repeat itself in some minimal way, okay? So are you guys ready? Don't fall asleep on me. Or if you fall asleep, don't snore, because then everybody starts to giggle. Okay. We're going to breathe. Everybody breathe. I know you're already tuned in a little bit. Now, in your own mind, take another deep breath. You're going to do a prayer of protection. Could be the Lord's Prayer, could be anything you like. Okay, take another really deep breath. We're going to set our intention. Our intention is that I am willing to receive insights and information from a past life that will help me gain insight and clarity about patterns I've lived in this life. You're going to go up a staircase. You don't have to see it. You can just know it's there. You could hear me just count it up. Any way you're comfortable, you just take that way through it. We're going to start with 1. We're going to go up step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're on the 7th level right now. And you're going to see a door straight ahead. The door is closed right now. You're going to be able to open it, but it's closed right now. Behind the environment of that door is an environment of a life that you've lived prior to this one. So when you're ready, I want you to go up and I want you to open the door and cross through the threshold. The door will open and you can cross through that threshold and be in the environment of a former life that you lived. And look around, see what you see. Feel what you feel. Sense what you're picking up on. There is a figure approaching you. This is a former identity that some part of your soul is familiar with. You can note his or her demeanor or dress, their sex, their attitude. This self, former self, comes up to you and introduces themselves to you. They will take you now by the hand, and they're going to take you to a place where a major event or scene happened in that life that they lived. Now your former self is going to show you a talent or a skill that they developed or had in that life. They're now going to show you a significant relationship in that life. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask your former self any questions that come to your mind right now about their experience. Now, you're going to get ready to leave. And before you go, I want you to thank your old self, because in a lot of ways you're a team. So I want you to thank your former self. And they will stop you and give you another gift. This one isn't in a box. can thank them again. Take your gift, and let's go back to the top of the stairs. Let's go through the door first. Let's go to the door. I want you to open the door and pass through the threshold, the doorway, and I want you to close the door tightly behind you. Make sure it latches. Now you're going to stand at the top of the stairs and you're going to come back into this room and this consciousness. We're starting at 7. We're going down to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's October 30th. It's 8:12 p.m. You're at A.R.E, 67th and Atlantic. Okay, in that exercise, you met a former self. They showed you a relationship. Actually, that was one of the last things they showed you. And not everybody had a significant relationship, so you may not have gotten anything there. They showed you a talent or a skill. It was the second thing. And the first thing was just a significant scene from their life, something that was important to them, good or bad or otherwise, a significant scene. And then, again, gift. And these all have different sort of things in them. Did anybody get all of those? It's hard to get all of them. But if you did, because you're going to be, okay, you guys, okay, good. It's hard to get all of these. And not every former self is going to have all these things. You may talk to a former self that doesn't think they have any talents or skills. They do, but they may not think they do. So you have to say, okay, you have some low self-esteem. I think I know something about that. So the reason that you would have a former life and that you would see it, the only reason a former life would come up, once again, we set our intention and said, okay, this has something to do with this life. We're not just flipping through the pages of your Akashic record going, hey, what's out there? We're not trying to figure out what's out there, not flipping channels of your past lives. We're trying to figure out what then affected now. And on your page, on the life purpose and soul pattern, there are some questions. And you can ask under life part 1, why. You can ask a major question like, why did this happen? Or why am I going through this? Or what was that divorce about? Or why did I have to meet that person? And then we fell in love and then he dumped me. What's the deal? So whatever your question is, and I'm sure you guys all have a million of them, why did that boss never get off my back for 1 minute of my life? You know, some people have that one. So the whys are going to be in there. But what I wanted to do, instead of having you set up, because you already asked a question, you can do this and ask a question and do the exact same exercise we just did, okay? That would be something you could do if you have a specific, even burning question. We already did a question earlier, so what I left this one open to see what was unfinished between your old life and what you would then have the talent and the skills to be able to fix that your old self couldn't fix. And remember, you were born in the 1900s, most of you, some of you maybe 2000s, but many of you the 1900 and somethings. You're born in the age of information. We have books, we have magazines, we have TV, we have all this, every problem that could ever be known. If it wasn't dealt with in the 50s or 60s, it started coming out in the 70s. So you've had plenty of lifetime to be able to research what your issues are, find therapists, get information, go on the internet and find out what's the deal with this. You've had plenty of lifetime to do that because you've lived much of your life now in the age of information. Okay, so, like I said, starting with radio in the 40s, going into TV in the 50s and 60s, and going into now, guys like, I guess in the 70s, I think it was Phil Donahue, came out and said, here I'm on TV, I want to come up with a problem, want to talk about divorce, want to talk about being gay, want to talk about incontinence, what do you want to talk about? And next thing you know, and he did it in a very classy, relatively tasteful way. They didn't all do that, but he did. So that's where it started. So whatever issue you've had, you're the one that has the resources, the information, the education, and the insight and awareness to be able to fix it. You're the one that was gifted with that. So that's why this life would matter. You're kind of the partner that has the answers. And if you look at the 1600s or the 1800s, they didn't have that. They didn't necessarily have that. Some people had great insight. Some people had great talent, but they didn't always have the information that they needed. Okay? Does anybody want to share anything that they got? It'll be a short night if we don't. Okay. Go ahead.
I mean, I was fascinated by what came up, the people, the scenarios.
So you
my
didn't
first
expect
question-
anything to come up?
Well, it connected to the first exercise.
Okay, sometimes they will. So it connected to the first one? Okay.
So it had to do with money and family controlling money and keeping me oppressed with their wealth.
So you were somehow tied to a wealthy family, and they controlled. You were a girl, right? Or were you a guy?
A guy in this lifetime. In this
Yeah. Oh, you were a guy.
No. I was a little boy.
You were a boy,
Well,
and the
explain
family.
it.
Okay, explain this,
I'm a
because
girl in this
the girls
lifetime.
usually didn't have the power. Some of the guys had a little bit, but yeah.
No, in this lifetime, my question was how my family has used their millions to oppress me and control me and demean me instead of bless me and lift me up.
Did you guys all hear that? Generally?
And so I've had like a lot of rage. Like it was like that question that woman had. Like why did they
Frustration towards your family.
Why did they do that?
Resentment,
Yeah.
rage, because they could have done something and they did something totally different. And if you're incarnating in a family like that, there's always a reason.
Yeah.
So what was
But
it?
what's interesting is that, so in this exercise,
Okay.
I went back to a scene in Holland and I was a little boy and I was running through the flower fields.
Okay, Holland, tulips, running,
Yeah.
flowers, boy.
Little boy. And then my grandfather from this lifetime was an uncle in that lifetime,
Okay, current granddad, former uncle.
former uncle.
Okay.
He took me to this event where the country was celebrating independence and there were all these fireworks going on.
Country independence fireworks.
Independence
Okay.
fireworks.
Guess that's
Then
a,
my
yeah.
talent, for some reason, I was a gymnast. Like I was this brilliant dancer and gymnast.
Okay, so you're extremely flexible as a boy. You were like a gymnastics kid.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then someone I know in this life, in that lifetime, was my manager. A guy was my manager, and he took me all around the world as this gymnast. And
So
he
you were a
wrote me-
performer, really.
I was a performer, and he wrote me check after check after check after check after check.
And your manager actually paid you
As my manager
instead of
paid-
taking the money.
Right.
Okay.
But the scene before was independence and fireworks.
Okay.
And then the gift I got from this character in this past life, this gymnast boy, was a gold medal and ribbon around my neck. Like the gift was the gold medal of being the best.
So he would mastered this. This
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a level of
Mastery.
mastery athletically.
And tons of money. And what's interesting
So
is
he
that-
made money off of his talent.
Right, money off the talent,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And what's interesting is that my gift in the first exercise around family and money and control had to do, I was given an apple, like the symbol of an apple. And
Okay.
And I heard, well, I'm their teacher. But then as I sat here, I realized Bill Gates, who did Apple computers.
I think that was the other guy.
He made his
Similar guy,
billions,
though.
But the apple, but both the exercises were about I'm meant to come into lots of money with my own talent and to
Instead of relying on family money.
right, like
Uh,
set it free.
Let me tell you a
bless
huge issue that some people have from other lifetimes, and everyone's got relatives here. But one of the worst things could happen to you is to be born filthy rich with no purpose, or not be able to find a purpose, or be so spoiled that you absolutely don't know what to do with yourself. I mean, there are people who have come back and they literally don't know how to work and they don't know how to make money. And even though their family had money, some of them did manage land, so they learned how to manage land. But some didn't have any skills. They were so busy getting dressed for dinner. You guys all saw Downton Abbey. They're so busy doing some of this. I mean, the guy that's the chauffeur that married in, he had a skill because he could fix cars. The rest of them, they know how to dress for dinner. They didn't know how, that's it. I mean, the staff knew more, had more skills for survival.
Right.
So your lesson
Well,
was,
my family,
you're
that have all
gonna,
the money, they don't have any purpose or mission.
well, they
I mean,
do,
but
but they
I've
haven't
always known
discovered it yet.
Well, yeah, but what I mean is like they're identified with their money and their lifestyle rather than being in service.
Yeah, and that's a good thing about making your own money.
But I always knew
From
as
your
a
own
kid what
skills
my
and
purpose
talents.
was. Like I've always known my purpose.
Okay, what's your purpose?
to share my
Share your
my
skills.
talents and
Okay.
as an entertainer, as a singer.
Okay, so you
as a
sing and you
songwriter.
perform. So you perform again.
Right.
So you're using different aspects of your physical being. Before it was gymnastics and performance and that type of thing. I guess some dance in there, but also now it's music and singing and performance. Okay.
But what's interesting is that in this past lifetime, my grandfather then took me to this event with fireworks, and it was celebrating independence. And I have a song I wrote about the Statue of Liberty called Igniting the Soul of America,
Oh.
which I know is meant to get out there and
Okay.
really help.
That would be a good election song, wouldn't it? Igniting the soul of
Even beyond
America.
election,
I kind of like that one.
it's just a message that helps to unify all of us.
We need some serious unification. That's for true. Well, let's all put that thought out there. Okay.
But it's interesting to me that this past life had to do with this now. It seemed like it was just a separate thing, but it's not.
Yeah, a lot of times they
Themes of
seem disconnected.
independence and talent and inspiration. The fireworks is that my gifts and talents are to catalyze.
Are your
spirit.
freedom.
It's my freedom, it's the freedom of the people, and it's all about catalyzing shitloads of spirit
Yeah.
from within.
And chances are, sometime around that Independence Day celebration in Holland,
Yes.
sometime around that experience, if that was a real thing that kid went to, sometime around then, that's when the manager would have talked to the father about or the uncle about getting the kid out to make money.
Exactly.
So that's probably it's gonna correlate. So that's why independence, of course, you said, I'm gonna pick America next time because they love gunpowder and fireworks and all that. So they love that celebration. So that was a good mix.
Who was my manager in that lifetime is been circling around me recently and
Uh-huh.
wants to come back into my life.
So the old manager might be coming back. That was a good combination though. So I think basically forgive your family
Yeah.
because they're not, it's not important anymore. You got a whole other thing to focus on. So, I mean, people do spend a lot of time, and I'm just saying myself included, wasting time on things that you can't do anything about. Something like this, you can do a lot with. Okay? All right, that's a good one. All right, so anybody else have anything else? We're going to run out of time pretty soon, but do you get the basic gist of how this works? Okay, so what you want to do is go back and do this, and what you want to do is on the paper, and you can do it tonight or tomorrow or some other time in your life. You can actually ask a question if you want, or you can just see what pops up. But I want you to do the same type of thing. I want you to do the breath. I want you to do the intention, the prayer and the intention. Those three are enough to protect you and to get your focus going. And practice makes perfect, so do it again and do it again. And start looking at the wisdom, because wisdom, for example, of what we're hearing in here about having to make your own way in life and being responsible for your own life and being able to express your talents. The one thing you don't want to do in this lifetime is get to the end, get to the other side and say, I missed it. I didn't do what I came in to do. You really want to hit this one. So just saying, that's one of the things. There's probably nothing more satisfying than really being really happy, really joyful that you've learned something. So whatever difficulty, I realize it's sort of a optimistic type sounding thing to say, but any difficulty taught you something. And that's one of the things that once you hit 50, 60, 70, you start to realize, okay, I can work with this. I can work with the idea that I learned something. If you're 20 and you figure it out, you're way ahead of the game. But the idea that I've learned something, and this wisdom is going to play in with my talents. And these talents and wisdom together become my mission. And what's interesting is over here, service is about giving, but it's selfless. Over here, this soul mission is service-oriented, but you may give to people. You may perform in front of other people. You may make them happy with your songs or your dance or your music or your talent or whatever your skills are. You might be a healer. You might be working with people. You might really be fulfilled. Over here is where the fulfillment is. So when you're giving information back to people and you're actually helping people, when you're working with other people and you're doing something for other people, it isn't just draining and exhausting like selfless service is. It's actually fulfilling and really nurtures your soul because it's part of your soul expressing itself through this body. So when your soul expresses itself through this body and you actually take whatever hardship or lessons and turn it into wisdom, that's when that combination of talents and wisdom, with every single person, it'll be a different prescription. Everyone here will be different. But if you take that combination, it's really where true fulfillment lies. This is where you can really find the life that your potential is to live. And the one thing about readings I will say that many people who do readings probably would agree is we look a lot at soul potential. People have the potential to do something, they don't always do it. And so what you want to do is when you work the wisdom together with the talents, you say, okay, make it one of your intentions. Let me meet my potential this lifetime. Let me do what I'm here to do. Let me get to the end of this life and go, I did it. This is amazing. That was great. Even if you've had hardship, even if you've had, because Casey's kind of famous, and one of the things that's in his readings over and over again, long suffering. He likes the term long suffering, but it's a little disturbing because it's like long suffering. Okay, so it doesn't sound fun. Certainly sounds challenging. But if you look at it from this perspective, the longer you're in something, if you practice, for example, a gymnastics or a singer, they have to come in and practice to get really good at what they're doing. They don't just walk in and perform. They practice. They rehearse. They do this over and over and over. Whatever you're good at, you're going to do it over and over and over. If you're a healer, you're going to do a lot of healings. If you're a reader or a psychic intuitive, you're going to do a lot of readings. That's the only way you're going to learn anything and get good at it. There is no other road. If you're a nurse, you're only going to be good. You're only going to be that great nurse that I was referring to if you see a lot of patients and learn and go through days that you don't want to be at work and days you don't feel like being there. You have to get through all that. But in the end, if you can put this combination of talents and wisdom together, and you have a little worksheet you can work on at your leisure that talks about what are you good at doing, what are your innate traits, and your calling and the wisdom that you're putting together. Just write words down that come to your mind. You don't have to write whole sentences. Just write words down that pop into your mind. It's like, I'm really good with people. I'm really loving to people. People really ask me to help intervene whenever there's a problem. You don't just go by what you think, go by what other people have told you too. Some of that can be helpful. Okay, any questions? Yes?
You're shielding, from what are you shielding yourself?
I think what we're really doing with the Our Father particularly is raising the vibration, but it's protecting you from any negative influences, that type of thing. It's supposed to be a protection from negative influences. But it's also, to me, when you do the Our Father, it actually goes through the chakra system, so it actually raises your vibration.
What type of vibrations are you shielding yourself from? Other entities, or you see other people, ego influence? Or
All the above. It's your own ego. It's if somebody in the house is doing drugs, they're going to be attracting some funky vibe in there. Depending on what's going on. There can be really negative, just chronically depressed people around, and you want to bring yourself higher than that because you're going to be influenced by that negativity sometimes. So yeah, you're not necessarily, this isn't drama. This isn't Halloween. You're protecting yourself from demons. It isn't always that dramatic. Sometimes you're just protecting yourself from other people's thoughts, attitudes, and ideas. And sometimes you're protecting yourself from your own. So, okay? Anything? Okay, I know it's late. It's 8:30, so we're finished tonight. If anybody has any questions, I'll hang around for a few minutes if you guys have any questions, okay? Go home and use these exercises, and I think you'll find that they're really, really helpful in the long run. Okay?